Alright, hi there. I'm Cameron Gallagher, mental performance specialist, and I'm here today with my good friend Logan, who is an entrepreneur and coach of the fullbalances.com. I've been wanting to speak with Logan for a while in the area specifically of influence, because Logan is a fascinating influencer. He is a very powerful model of how to communicate in ways which are both empathetic, compassionate, and highly congruent. He influences in a way which is not salesy in nature, and so I wanted to kind of speak with him in a little bit more depth to find out a little bit more about how he does that, and how he's come to develop such fantastic skills in that area. Hey, Logan.
Awesome, thanks. Very cool. I'm very excited to be here.
Great, mate.
It's,
beautiful place.
I just want to say something quickly about Cam, that he's come so far in about a year I've known you, about that. Massive growth, and both in your business and your personal life, and it's been amazing to watch.
Thanks,
really
mate.
impressed.
Cheers, thank you. Cool, great. So, look, to start off with, I just want to try and give a bit of context to the kind of the area or the territory of influence. So, Harvard Business School defines influence as, or great influence, great salespeople, as having two major qualities. One is ego strength, and the other is empathy.
Right.
So, I think for me, a lot of people that I see in sales or in influence will fall into one of those two categories as being dominant. They will either be too empathetic, or they'll have too much drive or too much ego in that conversation.
Right.
Wonder where you would say, or what would be some initial thoughts around that?
I have seen part of that Harvard study.
Yep.
Really, where it's been the most powerful in sales is where you can get a balance between the two of them, between your ego and what I would say was like your grace side of you. You know, the caring part of you, which can helps to stay in rapport with people when you're selling them something, or if they're selling you something.
Yep. So how do you, I've noticed, one of the things I've noticed about you, and I think probably possibly one of the things that has stuck out the most, or has impacted me personally the most, is your ability to do that. So I think that your level of flexibility in being able to remain compassionate, remain in that space, is hugely impactful, and I've felt that impact myself, and I've seen that work with other people, and not as a trick, but as a genuine thing. It's something we've spoken about on a couple of occasions. And so I wonder if you could just explain that a little bit. Like, what is for somebody maybe that is either maybe possibly struggling to develop that, or how does that fit in a sales conversation? Because I think some people go into an influence conversation and possibly they focus on themselves, or they're worried about themselves.
And that's the ego. That's right. The ego popping up, and the ego's it never rests. It's relentless, and the ego is always going, even when you're sleeping. And there's nothing wrong with that. The ego is just there, and it's there for a reason as well. It's part of the wellness challenges in this life. So for me personally, my experience around staying, kind of keeping that rapport and keeping like close to the people that I'm working with, both in sales, through my businesses, and with my friends and people I meet, is that I give undivided attention. And obviously, you want to make sure the undivided attention is a good balance as well, because there's some days where you just can't give all your attention to somebody. Where it's powerful is that I will give. I've created a life by design, so that I can have time to stop. And if there's times where I need to stop and give someone my attention, and this happens in sales as well as with friends. There's sometimes you can't plan for the let's call them speed bumps that are going to happen. There's people that are always going to have something that they'll just drop some of their emotions on you, and that is what it is, and it's awesome when they come to you, because it's a massive compliment when someone who's dealing with something comes to you for advice. So don't take that for granted, because they may stop coming to you for advice, and whilst it can be draining to start with, it's also one of the most uplifting things at the same time. If you give someone advice and they apply it, like the stuff we've talked about, in your business and in your personal growth, you've applied yourself a lot, and it makes me feel awesome. This is why I love hanging out with you.
Cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of things in there, right? So the first thing that I wanted to touch on, so there's probably a couple of things in there. One is definitely I would like maybe if you could give a bit more of an explanation as to what you mean when you say the ego, for someone that maybe doesn't
Good question.
quite know.
Okay. There's always two parts of your brain going, right? And there's that conversation going on in your head. If you're asking yourself what conversation, that little voice is the one I'm talking about. That little voice is that's kind of like your ego. It's the one that says, get the faster car, or get a better job, make more money. It's the one that says, go and work out so you look good. Now there's not wrong or right here. Like really, we're living in a world where some people will say something is either wrong or it's right. If you can step outside of that, that's where you get a lot more peace, and you step more into the other side, which I personally call it like your Holy Spirit or your grace. What was the word you used?
I'm not sure.
From Harvard University.
Oh, so empathy?
Empathy, right? So empathy. So it's the stuff that you do that raises your energy.
Right.
Your ego is getting you by.
Yep.
Your ego is looking at the clock. It's ticking in.
Yep.
It's making sure that you look good. It's the thing that pops fear up all the time.
Yep.
So the ego will take care of making all these things pop up during your day that distract you.
Yep.
We've got a lot of them as well. Like Facebook and Twitter and social media, phone calls from friends, texts and things.
Yep.
Whilst these things are all good to connect, you actually lose that essence of grace.
Right.
In a lot of cases.
Right. Okay.
So the ego.
Okay. Cool. So you'd sort of see people as operating from one of two frames then, is what I'm hearing, at any given time. So you've kind of you're either operating from that place of ego or from that place of grace, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And so,
can you think of what would be ideal?
No.
So if you've got two voices going on, what might be ideal?
Probably both of them at the same time.
You got it. Finding a balance between the two, because there's sometimes we are playing in this realm. We are playing in the earth where there's challenges that pop up, and there's if you want to be successful, you're not going to go down and hang out with the staff. I mean, with all due respect, the staff at Countdown and McDonald's. They're maybe budding budding entrepreneurs potentially, hopefully, but however, they may not have what it takes to help you grow your business. So if you are turning up and you're badly dressed or not dressed for success.
Yep.
When you go to these meetings where you're going to meet with people who can help your life and change your life so that you can help other people change their life, you're going to experience some struggles because you just won't belong.
Yep.
So the ego is helping you out a little bit there. The ego is helping you out to make sure you take care of those things that make you occur a bit more successful and a bit more balanced and whatnot.
Great. So how would you see that affecting someone in an influence process?
How do you mean?
So how would you see how do you think someone's ego perhaps could interfere with the process of influencing another human being?
The ego wants to win.
Yeah.
The ego wants to win, and that's because it is a game of survival. The ego is the oldest part of the brain.
Yeah.
It's like your critter brain.
Yeah.
And that critter brain is very naturistic.
Yeah.
It wants to survive.
Yeah.
It will do whatever it takes just to survive, not to thrive, just to survive.
Yeah.
And the ego part is because it wants to win, it will often tread over other people's emotions to get where it needs to go.
Yeah.
So this is where it's really good to be conscious of it, that it's there, whether you like it or not. If you notice that it's there, then it allows you to notice it in the moments where your ego's popping up, and you might be just saying something that is a little bit mean. You can't unsay some things.
Yeah.
So by giving undivided attention, like I tapped on earlier, gives you the time just to slow your pace of thought down. Not that you need to slow it down, but to run at a speed where you can just go, hang on, this is actually very powerful. How would I feel if I was the person talking to me right now?
Yeah. So I think that is a really crucial kind of post in the ground there. So I think from my experience of you over the time that we've met, that one thing comes across in a way that maybe can't necessarily be explained verbally or pointed out, but it's an emotion or it's a feeling that myself as the recipient, and I've seen with whenever Logan communicates with anyone, the effect that has, because they feel that you are there and not in here or with Logan. So you're not looking to win. That's I think the very first thing. What you've just said there is like step one in your process.
Right.
So and it seems to be that every time is that you seem to have a remarkable level of consistency, basically a flawless level of consistency in my experience of being in the other person's shoes before your. I think Stephen Covey says it is to what he says. He says
a win-win situation is what.
Yeah, and he says understand first. Seek to understand first, seek to be understood second, right? And I think that is you're a true master of doing that, and that's a fascinating thing for me. I just want to put that in the ground because I think that is that's obviously step one, which you automatically are doing now.
Right.
Yeah. And obviously there's those times you mentioned where you get interrupted, at the middle of your day, where maybe it's a little bit harder, or you maybe a little bit more triggered to the idea of having to do that. It seems more of a challenge, but you would, that's something that's still the first point of being able to be influential in that conversation.
Right. So also another thing on influence is that, thanks for sharing that. Is if you're around people that don't like you, then you're going to struggle to influence them.
Yep.
So this comes back to, I mentioned earlier about sales, is that if you don't take care that you are taking, understanding the person that you're speaking with, then you're going to be out of rapport pretty quick.
Yeah.
And you and I know that if you're out of rapport, things just go to slow-mo. Business especially. If there's no trust and no rapport, then this doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So there's a few tools and things that are really powerful to create, stay in rapport with people. Giving undivided attention is one of the biggest. In fact, I've got an article on that which is worth a read. You can find it on the 4balances.com and then look under notes. And like you said from Stephen R. Covey, is to really make sure that you understand people.
Yep. Fantastic. So if we were to take that as a step one, and we were to go to the second step. So if we were to say, what was the next thing that you would be looking to do if you're wanting to create an outcome with somebody or influence somebody, perhaps your way of thinking, or and you've taken this first step, which is to connect with them and to be in tune with them, and perhaps almost to put your own agenda out of the equation first.
Well, I think it just cut out. Sorry, wait. So there's so those three things for the children were either tired or hungry or they're not stimulated mentally. And this doesn't change for adults. Even to the day you die, if you're grumpy, you're probably hungry or tired or just bored, just not stimulated. So your question earlier being
about how listening would be experienced differently if you have an agenda, and what would be the second step there.
Right. So you imagine, so I say you can tell from the kids. If that child comes in and says, "Mummy, maybe like picturing a 5 or 6-year-old here. Mummy, look, I just drew a painting," and you go, "Oh, look, I'm busy. Oh, cool, nice painting." And then you keep doing what you're doing. That kid will feel unloved. That kid will feel like you haven't listened to them. That kid will feel out of rapport with you. And you can switch it around so fast. And in fact, the damage that you do emotionally to people in those split seconds takes longer to repair. Now, it's always repairable when it's something like that. But what would be so much more powerful and would take a lot less time for a mother, and this is a household situation, is if the kid says, "Mummy, I did a painting." You go, "Oh, you did a painting? Excellent, cool. What can I see it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here's my painting." And then you go, "Wow, what inspired this?" Because you could say it looks like a spaceship, but like, actually it's a horse. So you go, "So what is it?" And you ask them a question. When you ask people questions, they feel included. It's a very important thing to do, to make sure you ask questions so you can understand their point of view. Right? So you go, "So what is that?" "It's a horse." Like, "Cool, what kind of horse is it?" "It's a racehorse." Like, "A racehorse? Awesome, cool. What made you draw a racehorse?" "I just wanted something that would be faster than all the other kids. They were drawing cars and I wanted to do a racehorse." I'm like, "Honey, do you know that racehorses aren't as fast as cars?" I'm like, "Yeah, but they drive pulses." No, I'm just kidding. But you know, by doing that,
Yeah.
the kid's gonna go, okay, cool, thanks, mum, you know, and they'll run off, and they'll be satisfied that you listen to them,
Yeah.
and it will take all of 10 seconds.
Sure.
Like I say, nothing changes with adults. We still want to be listened to.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you there's three important things. Yeah. So there's three really key points to that. Is when you're speaking with somebody, and this actually comes from a sales and negotiation course that I've done. But it applies to every area. So working in businesses, yes, but also when we're hanging out with friends. Also when you're meeting new people. When you're maybe at a bar, you're meeting some girls or some guys if you're a girl, or some girls if you're a girl and you're that way inclined. You know, so but asking questions is really powerful. So ask questions mostly. At least initially, you want to use what they call keyword backtracking.
Yeah.
So if someone says, "Hey, look at my painting," you don't go, "Oh, look at your drawing." It's very subtle, but that subtlety is very important. So if you say, "Look at my painting, mummy," and you call it a drawing, she's like, "No, it's not a drawing. It's a painting," because someone might have a different understanding or meaning for the word drawing, right? So you use their words in their language. That will keep you in rapport. And the third thing, which is really important, and it's the hardest one to notice, is to make sure that when someone says something to you, so if you ask someone how their weekend was, and they said, "Well, I spent the whole weekend gardening, like 2 days gardening," you might have a presupposition pop up. The presupposition might be like, "Oh, that sucks, you spent 2 whole days gardening," and you might get a reaction from your friend like,
Oh, I love gardening.
"Oh, I love gardening,
fantastic.
right? Yeah, it's exceptional. All I can think about is gardening."
Yeah.
What do you mean? Must be hard work. So it's avoiding presupposing what you think they think.
Right. Okay.
Really important.
Okay, that's fantastic. So that's huge. So the first was listening,
Questioning.
questioning,
Questioning
asking
mostly.
questions.
Yeah, more questions. Asking them more questions, then they will ask you. And it comes from, you watch any great political speaker, is that they won't ask questions that people ask them often, at least initially. They'll answer the questions that they want it to be asked, and they'll maneuver around very, very seamlessly.
Okay, great. So let's get into that. So we've got asking questions.
Yep.
We have keyword backtracking.
You got it.
So repeating back what they've told you in their words rather than your own interpretation of it.
Yeah, if I ask how your weekend is and you say it was
Amazing.
if I say so it was better than average,
Yeah.
you're like, well, no, I'd say more amazing.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
Yeah.
Great. And the third one was not to be aware of your own presuppositions
got
around
it.
what you're assuming they meant when they explain
You got
something
it.
to you.
Nice.
Right. Nice.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So that's so coming through the basics here, then we've got initially taking that frame of listening from a place of without an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, coming up with those 3 core elements. So asking the questions, keyword backtracking on what they tell you, and not putting your own assumptions on, presumably so that you're getting a match of where they're at. So you're trying to match them or create a rapport on a very deep level, right? You're actually really trying to connect with them in a way that, to be honest, I suspect that if you were to go through these processes like this and you were to connect with someone like this, they're going to feel connected at a level that most people never connect with.
You got it.
Right? So because even just as I'm thinking about this, it feels so much more deep and personal, and because it's come from this genuine place, it's really is genuine and personal. It's it gives a whole nother meaning to the word rapport. Yeah. Because a lot of people, I think, and myself included, make the mistake of going in with listening, waiting for the opportunity to speak.
You got
right?
it.
So it's like, great, you've had your turn now, hear me out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's you're suggesting a completely different frame for using rapport there. And so let's get into, you said something interesting before about the politicians and them answering a different question to the one that they were asked.
Right.
Why don't you say a little bit more about that?
Well, that's a tack that might be better because that's very, very expansive.
Okay.
Might be better for another video.
Okay.
Sure. But it is a really good question. That's cool. There's a whole art. You could write a whole book on how to move conversation around so that you answer what you want to be asked.
Okay, cool. So
Now this is
why don't we sum that
something.
first one up as the basics and have that as being like video one?
sure.
Is that? Are we on?
We're on.
All right. So fantastic. Thanks, Logan. That's. I think we've got a really fantastic summary of what we need to be doing in the first part of an influence process. So we have listening to people without an agenda. So setting aside our ego in that first part to genuinely connect from a place of without an agenda, basically.
Well put. Setting aside the ego.
Yep. And then we to increase that experience of rapport is what we're wanting to do is to ask a lot of questions, to repeat back, to match or mirror back their experience using their language, right?
Yeah.
So we want to do that using their language, and then we also want to manage our own presuppositions around what is coming up for us, what are we assuming that their experience, what do we think that their experience means when they tell us about it, that perhaps is not quite correct. So we want to manage that as well. Is there anything else that you think is important in this first part of the process?
And this first part of the process, being that we're trying to create rapport, there is one more, and that is to make sure you mirror and match body language. There's a lot of places we can find heaps of information about it, but I believe we've got another video.
Absolutely, we do. So you will see Logan and I talking about body language and how to mirror and match in a way which will build your rapport and increase your influence in another video. So that's the end of this part one for us here today, and it's been great. Thanks, Logan.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.